Goose. Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap, brought to you by CrowCast, of course. A very exciting edition because we're heading into round one, and that's what we've all been looking for all winter or all summer, haven't we, Macca?
We have, Fiend, and you're breaking up a bit there, mate. Yeah, look, it is exciting. It's a sort of a... You hope it's going to go the way we think it's going to go. You hope it's going to go the way we want it to go. But we just want it to start. That's the main thing. And it's going to happen next week. Of course, we get shoveled off to Sunday like we normally do. So we have to wait a little bit longer. But let's hope that it is worth the wait.
Well, I'm sure it will be, mate. It's been a long off-season, but lots of hopeful signs, lots of encouraging signs, and the trial matches certainly didn't do anything to sate our expectations, I guess you'd say. But we got a lot to talk about tonight, though, mate. Not only have we got the preview of round one, we've also got a bit about injuries. We've got a bit about poor old Matty Crouch.
Apparently, I'm not. I was just saying that I'm not showing up there, Fiend.
What? My audio's struggling, is it? Maybe we'll just give that another crack. How does that sound? Is that guy any better?
Not beautiful.
It's a bit strange. There's no reason why it wouldn't be beautiful. Let me think.
It is crackly.
All right. How's that? Better?
We'll see how it goes.
Might just be crackly through Discord. Sometimes the people listening through Discord, sometimes the upload isn't great. But if people are watching on YouTube and it's all clear on that, then I'll take that. So anyone on YouTube, Seeds, if you're listening on YouTube and the volume or the audio sounds fine, then we'll just proceed, I think, and we'll just put it down to Discord being a bit rude. Yeah, all reports that YouTube is fine, so the stream out must be fine. It's just a Discord stream. So anyone who's listening on Discord who's getting jack of the audio, either flick over to YouTube or go to the Spreaker feed at Spreaker. All right, Mac. What are we going to deal with first? I think we're going to deal with a little bit of news from the club. Of course, first of all, we've got Matty Crouch's situation to deal with, and that was quite unfortunate.
Yeah, it was interesting because it was a sort of a non-incident too. You know, I've seen the video of what happened and just two players colliding, running towards each other, and one's knee just got the other one just below the knee and cracked his tibia, I think it was.
Yeah,
Fibula?
yeah, just
One
a
of the
crack,
two bones.
fibula, I think. It was just a leg knock, wasn't
Yeah, it looked like nothing really. But for Crouch's sake, it's probably very, very unfortunate because there is a situation where he didn't go. In fact, he went quite well in the pre-season matches, and I'm not suggesting he would have been in the starting 22, but he would have been hanging around the edges waiting for somebody to get hurt.
Yeah,
So
he wouldn't have been far off, I don't reckon.
It's him.
I don't reckon he would have been far off, Mac, to be honest with you.
I know.
I think he'd done enough to earn a bench spot and give us a bit of variety around that midfield area. So it's shit luck for Crouchy. It really is. And we wish him a speedy recovery. It's only a hairline crack, I think, so it's not a complete break or anything. So Hopefully it's only a few weeks. What does the club say on it? The club says spend the weekend resting. We'll review him again in 48 hours to assess the injury. But thankfully the injury should not be too disruptive to his season. So it sounds like 2 or 3 weeks, I reckon, mate.
Yeah, look, I genuinely feel sorry for him because the guy had really worked hard to try and change his game,
Yeah.
and he played, as I said, he played well. And he's got another kick in the gut, so it's unfortunate.
Yep, never mind. So apart from that, the injuries seem pretty clear apart from the ones that we already know. Of course, we've got poor old, what was I going to say? Poor old Seeds, who's out for what looks like the year. We've got Worrell is still carrying a hammy, I think, Mac?
I couldn't even catch what you said then.
Worrell.
Sounds not good, mate.
Yeah, it's only not good through Discord, Mac. So let me just see if I can quickly fix that up. Can't spend too much time on it, unfortunately, but we'll see what we can do. Bear with me, those people listening on YouTube and Spreaker. Well, I just fix the old man's voice. Pardon me. It's not a professional organisation, unfortunately. Okay, so change the codec. Change the codec and see if that makes a difference. How does that sound, Mac?
That sounds a lot better.
Does it? Yeah, I've just changed the setting in Discord. I think it's just Discord that is messing around. So hopefully that sounds better for everyone now who's listening on Discord. All right, let's get on with it, Mac. Stop messing around. I was saying Worrell still carrying a hammy, I think.
Yeah, he did a hammy, and they said he'd be doubtful, which means he won't play. I think you can put that down as a certainty that he won't play. Yeah. You don't go into your first game and take chances first up like that. You've got to put out 22 players that are fit and firing. The other question mark I've got is about Miller, who hasn't been around for a couple of weeks through personal reasons, and I don't know what those personal reasons might be, but whether that puts him back in a week or so and he doesn't play this week. From my personal point of view, I wouldn't pick him because of the fact that he hasn't been around for the last week or two.
Well, he hasn't played, has he? So, I mean, it makes it really difficult to actually pick him, irrespective of his form and training track form prior to that. He's missed a couple of lead-ins. He's obviously got some stuff going on. The club hasn't disclosed anything about that, and that's fair enough. But I think that probably sees him out, Mac. Round one.
Not necessarily for the whole year, but I think he will.
No. I'm saying round one. 22. Round one is what I'm saying. We can't project for the whole year. So aside from that, Macca, the other thing that's happening around Clubland there's a couple of things, but let's deal with the easy one first, shall we? Because the easy one first is the little situation that got resolved supposedly between Port and Collingwood. You across that one?
I'm struggling to understand what you're saying, mate.
Well, no one else is, so I can't work out what's going on, Macca. Whether it's at your end or what, I can't work out what's going on.
Okay.
To be fine.
I think you were talking about Port. Talking about Port and Collingwood and the wearing the the wharf pylons, which they call
That's
prison
right.
bars.
Yeah, that's right.
And to me, I mean, it is the greatest piece of shit of all time. And really, if that football club would really be concentrate on trying to win a premiership instead of trying to be one up on this bloody prison bar Guernsey, which is a heap of shit anyhow. What's the big deal?
Well, I've got a bit of a question about that whole thing, Macca, because Port Adelaide go on about their heritage, 1870 and all that. I just want to put up, let me see if I can find. I just want to put something up here because it really makes a bit of a mockery of what Port are talking about. Let me just put this across. Now, Port Adelaide, 1877, and prior to this, they were actually blue and white.
Yeah,
but
that's correct.
1877, they moved to the pink when they joined the SANFL. So their first SANFL jumper was pink, right? And it wasn't actually until 1902 that they changed to the wharf pylons, right? I don't care how many times they say it's the prison bars, it's the bloody wharf pylons. But, they've had, look at this, 1924, they went to, this looks like a bloody jockey's thing with the two black stripes. At 1941, they had a Collingwood replica Guernsey. All the way up to, they didn't go back to the wharf pylons until 1953. So I don't know why they're so hung up on the wharf pylons.
Because they're a pain in the arse club. They love to whine about everything.
Well, I mean, they seem to pick and choose what is their heritage. They pick and choose what their heritage is. They were separate. They were Port Power, and then they were separate from the Magpies, and the Magpies got kicked out of Alberton, and all this sort of stuff. And then they're one club, and now they're on prison bar Guernseys when they really should be wearing pink. They've never worn a pink Guernsey for a heritage match in their life, but they should.
Well, I'd love to see it, but it won't happen.
Yeah. Something else that's quite interesting too, when you think about Collingwood and the way in which they've hung on to their heritage for all this time as well, Mac. If you look at Collingwood, there's something really sneaky happened with Collingwood. So all this time they've had 3 white and 2 black stripes on their Guernsey, right?
Yeah.
Except that it used to be the other way around. They've actually mirrored it. It's now 3 white and 2 black. So their own heritage gone from 3 white and 2 black, 3 black and 2 white, to 3 white and 2 black. Look at that. 3 black, 2 white, up until 2000. And then all of a sudden, from 2001, they've gone 3 white, 2 black.
Yeah, well, who really cares? Nobody.
I think the funniest thing is that, these clubs fart-arsing around about heritage, and it was Essendon as well for ages, fart-arsing around heritage, and we won't wear a Clash Guernsey, we won't wear this, and we won't wear anything else. It's bloody bullshit. And yet, one of the few clubs that's actually maintained their heritage from start to finish, Macca, is Adelaide. If you have a look at Adelaide's Guernsey, we've been the hoops all the way through.
Yeah, we have. No doubt about it.
There you go. Anyway, the other more important thing is something that we talked about on Twitter today, and that was the issue down at Thebby. You crossed that, Mac?
Yeah, look, I'm really pissed off about it, quite frankly. I mean, the original plan when we went there was to have the Thebby Oval as proper, at the same size as Adelaide Oval, and using the King's Reserve on an oval, Adelaide Oval, the MCG size. which made absolute common sense.
Yeah.
Now, the people, let's get it straight. There are 60,000 residents live in the West Torrens Council. We've got 50 squeaking, scrungy-looking mongrels holding placards and making all ridiculous comments. I mean, they're just pains in the arse, Pete. I mean, there's 50 of them. There's only 50 of them out of 60,000. And what really gets, and look, they're talking about the trees, and I do understand you could always make a sensitive argument when you start talking about trees. What the Crow's plan was, there was 150 trees or something like that, but we were going to knock them down and then plant 300, I think it was 300 saplings, and we said we'd plant in place of it.
Yep.
Now, it isn't the same thing, I understand that, but in time, it would be probably a much better situation. However, the people who never go there know that, we won't have our shady trees. Well, I nearly swore then. They're not there anyhow. It doesn't matter if there's any shade. They're not there. So I thought our club was a bit piss weak in giving in, except that we're probably playing the long game on this. That's the only thing I can think that we are doing is that, okay, let's get this thing over the line, and then we can probably maybe sneak a little bit later. But once South Road is finished, that will release another hunk of land, and then we will probably get our Adelaide Oval sized oval then.
Well, I wouldn't bet on it, mate. To be honest with you, what I've got up on the screen at the moment was the original revised plan. So the first cut, actually, where number 5 is, that's the community centre. The original cut was that the community centre was going to go all the way across the back end of that oval, and the oval was actually going to be a little bit further west, pushing into the treed area. They came up with a revised one that reduced the size of the community hall, which is the one that I've got up on screen. And then, as we've found out during the course of the week, they've actually now revised that again. And let me just see, I can bring that up somewhere. I did have it up. And they've actually, it's now smaller than anything else, Mac. It's not even a full size oval, just about.
It's not. That's what I say. I'm really angry that we gave in on the issue, but I suppose it would have to be something to do with the council itself saying, look, to shut these people up, you'll just have to do something now, and then we can rectify it later. That's what I'm thinking.
So I've got it up now, and you can see now that the proposed oval, from the first design, which is the blue boundary, to the second design, which is the orange boundary, to the current one, which was put forward last week, we've gone from a full-size MCG oval to still a full-size MCG oval, but I think realigned a little bit to try and squeeze stuff in, to now we've got a oval that is 159.5 by 128.8. And the idea behind that is that they preserve as much of that treed area to the western side of the oval as possible.
Yep.
Now, the light blue shading on that map is the amount of ground that's being used during the South Road development that will be returned, but I'm not sure whether it gets returned to our lease or whether it gets returned to the council, Macca.
My understanding is it gets returned to our lease.
Well, at the moment, our lease is that red dotted line.
Yeah, but I'm sure there'll be a proviso in the lease that will become part of the lease when that becomes available. That's the only way we would have given in as easily as that.
Well, I don't know, Mac, because that's not free until 2031 at the earliest, assuming that everything works out on time with the South Road development. 2031's another 8 years away. And I just don't understand why we've capitulated to such a degree.
Yeah, when you consider, as I said, there's 60,000 residents and we've got 50 squawkers Make people who've never given bloody been on King's Reserve, but the fact that we capitulated so quickly tells me that that's a strategy. It can be the only reason why.
Well, I did a little bit more digging today, Mac, and I found the proposal that was in front of the council before the Crows took an interest in Thebby. And as far as I could see, there was no argument about getting rid of trees when they were looking at their last development plan.
Exactly right.
Let me just bring it up here if I can. No. Because what that was calling for was a complete reconfiguration of the ground to the western side. So that's where the trees are at the moment. And have a look. And it actually was taking out quite a number of trees because of some of the planned roadways connecting Ashwin Parade to Meyer Avenue, which is the bit in between. So let me just see if I can find the actual plan. There's a plan here somewhere. Master plan. Here we go. I'll just scroll. So, pardon me for just being a little bit disorganised on this, but I think it's interesting to see what the residents were quite happy with approving before, it became a Crows issue.
Yeah, bloody ridiculous. But I still think that there's something up the sleeve for us to give in as quickly as we did.
Yeah. So this was the situation when Kings was going to be redeveloped by Thebby before we came along, and you can see the two circular areas on the left-hand side of the Kings Reserve. One part here is the playground, and then further down it's a little bit of a kick-to-kick, right? And blah blah blah. We go through their report, and you can see here that that's the current configuration with a skate park and a basketball ring and a picnic area and blah, blah, blah. And the proposal was, if I keep scrolling, sorry for boring people, the proposal was this part here was actually going to be a road. So all the trees along here were going to be a road. The picnic area, which is currently under trees, was going to be relocated, and kick-to-kick was going to be happening to the north of that. Now, you can't tell me there weren't trees being knocked down for that, Mac. In fact, if you go further down on this report, and this is available on their website, and it talks about impact, there's a lot of options here. Sorry for the scrolling. So they go through a lot of options here with regards to what they're going to do. And where's my scroll bar? You can see that impact on trees in many of these options is classed as medium. So what they were actually going to do was going to have a medium impact on the tree situation there anyway. And I don't understand why residents were happy to accept that when it was all about nothing to do with the Crows, and all of a sudden the Crows get involved, and we're going to take down some trees but replant them. And it becomes an issue.
Well, there would be port supporters living in that particular area, and so if they can make our life a little bit more difficult, they probably have. The guy that's leading this whole thing is a professional stirrer by nature. He goes into heaps and heaps of protests and on all types of matters. So he's not really truly he got involved in footy. Somebody's organised this bloke, got about 49 other rebels and dragged in on some snotty-nosed kids along with them, and then made it look like they're stealing our trees. Yeah, so look, I think let's just finish it there. It's just
well, I don't want to finish it there because there's a couple more things I want to say on this, Macca. So I'm not going to finish it there, right?
Because I don't think it's going to end there. That's why I
Well,
don't think so.
well, can I talk about it?
If you want to.
Thank you. So we're spending now $100 million on this development. $100 million. I haven't heard of any reduction in the cost of the development due to the reduction in land size. It's already blown out from 80 million to 100 million. If we're going to play 100 million, right, then I don't think there's any room for compromise.
Look, I can tell you now, I've been in our brethren down the port with their pylons and moors and bars and all the rest of it. They would have stood firm. I mean, they rode roughshod over the people. The people were protesting their heads off down at Port Adelaide, down Alberton Way, when they with their email, but they just went ahead with it. The council just said, nodded their head, said go for it, because you're our footy team and everything revolves around the footy team. Now, why that wasn't, we weren't given the same luxury, but the other thing we do have a problem is we've never had a Crows premier. We don't have if you go through all the heads of chiefs of departments in the state government, they're all bloody all Port Adelaide people. They don't give a shit. But if they, and ports, they actually contributed some money to it as well.
But this isn't a state government issue. This is a local council issue. And
but the state government could override them if they wanted to.
Well, and that may well still happen. But I very much doubt it. Very much doubt it, because I would imagine that the state government would be following the supposed, public wishes and therefore public votes very closely. Look, we did approach the Crows to see whether they wanted to have a chat about it. They deferred for now, but they have referred people to the survey on the website. So I went and did the survey this afternoon. You don't have to be a resident of the West Torrens Council to have a say. Obviously, I've finished mine, so it says thank you. But if you go to afc.com.au/facility, all right, and then go to the survey page on that website, you can answer a series of questions, and as you can see on the screen there, it also gives you the opportunity to write a longer submission if you feel so inclined. The questions are relatively generic, but it does give you a couple of opportunities to make free text comments or statements on your survey. So, look, I would encourage everyone who barracks for the Crows, because what I think we're dealing with here, Macca, is a silent majority getting screwed over by the vocal minority. And
which is it.
The difference between the Crows situation and the Port situation is that we're not the incumbent, right? We don't live there at the moment. Port lived at Alberton already. They were just looking to expand, whereas we're looking to move in, and I think that makes it more problematic for us. And I can understand why the Crows are very sensitive to that. But if you have a look at it from a pure, if you want it best in class, right, and you want a situation where the Thebby Oval is being reconfigured to align with Adelaide Oval and be the same configuration as Adelaide Oval, right, and then you look at the purpose of the second oval, which was to replicate the MCG, which is where we play finals. Let me just run through the different sizes, right? So the proposed new size of Thebby number 2 is just under 160 long by just under 130 wide. If you have a look at the MCG, which will come up, and whoops, we'll go back one. What happened to the MCG? There it is. If you look at the MCG, it's 160 by 141. So it's far fatter. And that is the whole thing with playing on the MCG. You've got to be able to cover these wings. You've got to be able to spread further across the ground. So
we need another 11 metres. We need another 11 metres in width, mate.
That's exactly right. So then if you have a look at Perth, it's longer, about the same width, but about 5 or 6 metres longer. If you have a look at the SCG, it's shorter but fatter again, so it's close to the width of the MCG in terms of width. and a little bit shorter. If you have a look at Marvel, this seems to be the measurement now. It seems to basically replicate Marvel now. Okay, so it's more or less 160 by 129. We're 159.5 by 128.8. So basically Marvel Stadium, right? Which we play on a couple of times a year. Unlikely to play finals on Marvel. The Gabba again is a fatter ground, slightly shorter and fatter. The Giants ground is longer and a similar width. And then of course Carrara is also wider. Okay, so there's a lot of grounds that we play on that are wider than what is proposed, and certainly a lot wider than that. The issue is that our home ground is quite narrow, Mac. So as a consequence, we need that practice on that wider ground, and that's what we seem to have sacrificed. I'm more worried about the width than I am about the length when it comes to Thebby number 2. And then of course you've got to deal with Cardinia Park, mate.
Oh, I mean that's shit old.
I think I've tried. I think I've replicated Cardinia Park's shape as closely as I possibly can. How they let that ground stay at 115 metres wide when they redeveloped the whole bloody thing, I will never know. And when you look at it from the aerial view, it's just like they've shaved off one side of the oval and made it straight. It's ridiculous. But anyway. So look,
that alphabet oval that bloody Geelong play on. I was reading an article that said that the government's guaranteed the cost of it, and there's 150 million overrun, which means if that's right, not the government, is it the government? It's either the government or the AFL are going to pay the 150 million, not bloody Geelong.
Well, where's Geelong going to get any more money from? I would say it's the Victorian government. The Victorian government are doing a hell of a lot to try and prop up that neck of the woods because the issues with Ford and all that sort of stuff, and I guess you can't begrudge them that. But I'm not worried about that. I'm more worried about this, Mac, because to me this is a situation when we're going to spend $100 million, Macca, we're going to spend $100 million, and we can't set it up the way we actually want, then you've got to wonder whether Thebarton is the right location, to be honest.
Well, because there'll be another year and a half then the drain if we have to look around elsewhere. Look, I think Thebarton will go ahead, and I still think that in the long run we'll get what we want, but it won't happen straight away.
Yep. Well, the only hope we've got is that we can get some of that land in 2031. I just think, look, if I'm going to spend, I'm sure we would not have given in that easily if we weren't going to get that land. Yeah, but it's 8 years away, Macca.
Jesus, the way they move on everything, 8 years is a bloody short time, and the way they've been moving on this oval thing.
Well, it's not the oval that's holding it up; it's the South Road extension, and that's exactly the point. That 8 years is bare minimum. It could very easily be 10. They're tunnelling under there. It could very easily be 10. So we're going to spend $100 million on a downsized lease area, like the square metre or the hectare size is reduced. I haven't heard anything about a reduction in the price that's going to cost us. So we're going to spend $100 million on something that is good. Don't get me wrong, the club facilities and the primary oval will be great, but $100 million, mate?
I can add no more, mate. I can add no more.
I'll tell you what, if I've got $100,000 to spend on a bloody car, I'm not buying a Commodore station wagon.
And when you're about 20, you would have.
No, don't downplay it, Macca. I feel very strongly, this is our club's future. This is our one opportunity to build a state-of-the-art facility. And let's face it, we had the opportunity to build a state-of-the-art facility down at West Lakes until that got scuppered by some people. And all right, West Lakes isn't the best location going around. But we had the lease, we had the space. It was financially appealing for us, and we've been forced to relocate because of that. What happened with moving to Adelaide Oval and the consequent development, etc. We're spending $100 million. We're going to we're currently debt free. We're going to go back into debt to fund this, right? And to me, unless we're getting exactly what we should be getting and what we need out of this deal, then we shouldn't be taking it on.
And I understand what you're saying. I hear you loud and clearly. But at this stage, I don't believe they've got any alternatives. So I still think that there is a longer term issue here that they've got a guarantee on. Otherwise, they wouldn't be agreeing as readily as they have. Now, I know what you're saying. It's years away, but the whole point is they're planning to stay there for a long time.
Yeah.
Look, I think it's piss weak. Don't get me wrong. It is piss weak. We're not arguing about that. And I still think they should have gone to the state government and said, look, just declare it a major project. And the whole thing would have just gone straight through. Wouldn't have mattered about what the council said there.
Yeah, and that's the problem. It's a Labor seat, that area, as far as I know. And you wouldn't. The Labor government aren't going to want to piss off the local residents. Assuming it is the local residents. For the sake of a few votes. Anyway, okay. We'll see how that develops. The club, as I said, if you feel strongly about it, go and fill out that survey. Make yourselves known wherever you can, because it just seems to me like the silent majority is being a little bit apathetic about this one and allowing the vocal minority to run roughshod over the club's plans and the amount of money that this club puts into the state, filling bloody Adelaide Oval twice a month with 50,000 people. I think some allowances need to be made for that. Anyway, let's move on. I won't bore people anymore. Now, mate, the other big thing that's happening at the moment is, of course, we've got to get ready for round one.
We do. And we have to pick a side for round one.
Yes, that's right. So, of course, the Crows are playing the Giants, at Giants Stadium on Sunday at 12:40 our time. Okay, and it's hasn't been a happy hunting ground for us, Mac, to be perfectly honest.
No, we haven't got a great record there at all. But I'm thinking to myself, this is the time that we can actually bust that hoodoo.
I do too, and I've put what their likely team is going to be and what my proposed team is going to be, Mac, and we'll just see what you think about it. Because from where I'm sitting, and hopefully people that are watching on YouTube, that's big enough. Probably will be if you're watching it on a TV. As I said to you last week, I think the biggest problem that we're going to face with GWS is the midfield. But if we can get on top of the midfield, I think they're weak at either end of the ground, to be perfectly honest with you.
They have got a good player at each end of the ground. They're the bloke that they play full back. He's a star in the making. He's very, very good. Had an outstanding year last year. And Himmelberg they put back to full forward, and he can always clunk a mark and kick a goal as well. It's more their fringe players around the half forwards and the half backs where you've got a chance to get through. Taylor's the guy I was thinking of at full back. He's a very, very good player. But their midfield hasn't got the potency that it used to have. I mean, when you take out a Taranto and you take out a Hopper, you're taking out some real quality out of the middle. And they've still got a reasonably good midfield, but I still think it's one that we can actually break even with now, whereas we've always had a distinct disadvantage in the midfield when we played GWS.
What they always had was strength and speed in the midfield, wasn't it, Mac? They'd get the ball and they'd just chain handball out of there, and they'd be strong and they'd be fast and they'd spread, and It was once they broke free, it was extremely difficult for them to be stopped. I don't see that same explosiveness that they used to have. They've got, Kelly Caniglio, Green is a very good player, running through the middle. They'll have, a couple more going through there. Ward will probably go through there a little bit. Weir will go through there a little bit. They got Perryman and
Kelly.
Ash probably going through there. Well, Kelly already said. So it doesn't strike the fear of God into you like it would have in years past, in my opinion. They're just getting a little bit older. They've just lost a yard. Caniglio's, a great player, one of my favourite players when he's in nick, but he's a bit up and down. So I think you're right, but I think that's the area where they're the strongest. I do agree that they've got a couple of good players at either end of the ground, but if you look at their defence versus our forward line, let me read you the names. Their tall defenders are Phil Davis and Sam Taylor, most likely. Haynes is kind of their top Tom Diday, I guess you'd say. They got Whitfield running off half back, so he's a good running half back. You got Isaac Cumming and Connor Iden. They're coming up against, like, in terms of the tools, they're going to have a real problem, I think, because you've got Walker, Himmelberg, Fogarty, and McAdam all running through there. Are they going to have enough tall players to be able to actually hold us aerially, do you think?
Well, even if they get the ball to the ground, I think that's where we're going to be very dangerous as well. I think that, the forward line that we've got is probably what you would call an ideal forward line because of the fact that it's got a mix of marking players, leading players, and players that can crumb and also fight very hard to hold the ball in the area. So it's a very, very good forward line thing. It's as good as, well, I won't say it's as good as any in the competition, but it's the best we've had for a long, long time. It's a real quality forward line, in my opinion, and that's our strongest part of the ground. There's no doubt about that. And so if we can break even in the midfield and give the opportunities up forward, then they undoubtedly will get some opportunities the other way as well. But if we can get a 50-50 break even in the middle, then I think we can win the game.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at their defence, it's probably the weakest part of their game, or weakest part of their team, in my opinion. Their forward line isn't too bad. They've got Hogan and Himmelberg, obviously, as their two tools. But I don't think... I mean, Hogan can bob up and get on a bit of a tear sometimes, and Himmelberg's a good marker as well. But coming up against Murray and Butts, we should be able to hold our own in those contests. It really comes down to their small forwards, Mac. Green in particular, but also Lloyd can do a number on us. The wingers, Ash and Perryman, can do a bit of a number on us at times. But we're looking pretty strong there too. We've got Diday and Dawson and Smith as our sort of mid-size defenders, and probably, I think, Parnell. I reckon Max Michaelani probably gets a run, but starts on the bench. What do you think?
I think he plays, actually. I think he starts, in my opinion. I think that in the side that I've sort of drummed up, and I sort of had Parnell sitting on the bench, and there'd be perhaps possibly some interchange if necessary between McAloney and Parnell. But I had both in the 22.
Yeah. Well, I've got both in the 20. I think it's 23 now, isn't it? We've got 5 on the bloody bench now. I don't know.
Yeah, plus one, and that's good. And that's called a substitute. And he isn't one that can freely come in and out the game. He can come in once.
That's right.
And it's very interesting who you would actually choose for that. So it's what type of player. You'd want somebody that's got legs, I would think. Somebody that's got speed and legs.
Well, I think it's out of Hamill and Pedler. I think it's out of Hamill and Pedler, to be honest with you, Mac.
Well, I had Hamill down as my sub.
Yeah. It's out of those two.
side I knocked up, I had Rankin, Fogarty, McAdam, Pedler, Walker, Rochelle, Sloan, Laird, Hinge, Smith, Duday, Dawson, and Michelini, Butts, Murray, and O'Brien, Berry, and Saligo starting off, and the reserves with Keys, Himmelberg, Schonberg, and Parnell, and with a sub of Hamill, and I didn't consider Miller.
I think you'll find I didn't consider Miller either. You got Himmelberg starting on the bench. I think they'll start him on the ground because I think they'll want to stretch the Giants, particularly early when the heat is on. When the heat is on and the ball's coming into the air, into the forward line in the air, maybe a bit haphazardly, I think they'll want as much marking power up there as they possibly can.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. I nearly went that way when I wrote it down because it's potentially another way to go. And throughout the game, I'm sure we're going to mix and match that situation where sometimes we've got an extra tall up there, and sometimes we've got an extra small up there. So just to offset them so they can't get totally balanced in their defence. Yeah. So look, it wouldn't surprise me if it started that way, and it wouldn't surprise me if it didn't start that way a bit. But I can guarantee that both styles of play will be used up there.
I've also gone a bit controversial in the midfield. I reckon they might give Ben Keys a run with role early on Caniglio.
Not controversial. I tossed up for ages about that too. It wouldn't surprise me if he did start off in the midfield. I put Saligo in there, but Saligo might come in there not for the very first bounce, but he might be the first change.
Yeah. I reckon just early they might try and sit on either Caniglio or Kelly. And Caniglio's the one I thought. Just whether they stick with that for the whole game, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if they tried to call one of their midfielders down and just close up the midfield for the first little while, Macca. Because we do have some good players sitting on the bench, Saligo and Harry obviously on the bench, who are probably, well in that rotation. But I wouldn't mind actually seeing a bit of a rotation where Keys, Rankin, Saligo and Schonberg and even Josh Rochelle just do that 4-5 way, mix and match through the forward line and through the midfield, because that's an area where I think we've got far more flexibility and can throw far more looks at GWS than they can at us. I don't think they've got the same versatility that we do.
Yeah, I'm in the same camp as you there. That does give us a lot of versatility, and it does also mean that, for example, they've got a few tools in their back line, so we put some smalls down there as well, and that makes it difficult for them to defend all those smalls. Or if they're getting on top, then you put an extra tool down there. So we've got and those, as you say, the rotation of those players that are also in the forward line through the middle as well just gives it a lot more options.
It was interesting.
I will say, but
go on. Yeah.
The only fear I have is that there's no doubt that under their previous coach, he had lost the players. And that they were underperforming massively under him, massively. I mean, when you had a look at the talent that they've had, and they've lost 3 very good players in Hopper, the other one went to Richmond, Taranto, and Tanner Brune. They're 3 good players. They've lost those, and yet they've still got not a bad-looking side on paper. And it just shows you how much that coach had lost this group, but they played very, very well against the Gold Coast. They tore them apart in their pre-season game. So that's my only concern, is the fact that they will be a much more dangerous side than I would have thought if we were playing them last year.
Bit of a West Coast bounce. West Coast tend to, when they play badly, they play terrible, and then they seem to be able to bounce back quite quickly.
Yeah, but I don't know how quickly they're going to bounce back this year.
No, but you know what I mean. In seasons past, West Coast have been able to bounce back from a poor year quite quickly, and it could be that way. Look, they aren't getting any younger. Their main drivers aren't getting any younger, Macca. And like I said, I feel like they've lost that explosiveness that they had through the middle, and it was almost at times like they were playing about 15 midfielders and a few tools, and it was very difficult to contain them. I don't see that same level of strength. Obviously, they have got a new voice with Kingsley there now, and we've spoken about Cameron before and questioned his coaching credentials. We've also questioned the passion of the Giants side when the going gets tough. And one of the hallmarks of the Adelaide Crows, certainly in early doors this season, is that tenacity at the contest and at least for the last 12 months, our unwillingness to give the contest away despite being down.
Yeah, I totally agree with that too. And the one thing I do like about the fact that both our pre-season games were played away from Adelaide Oval, were played interstate, was the fact that we showed that passion when we were playing as the away team. It's a lot more easy to be passionate when you're playing in front of your local crowd, but when you're playing against a team where nobody's barracking for you whatsoever, and you can perform like that, I think that's a very, very good sign, and I would be expecting them to give the same amount of endeavour and intensity against the Giants. And if they do bring that, I think they will win the game.
Yeah. Something else that might count against us, Mac, we haven't actually played up there since 2015. The last time we played away against GWS was actually at Monaco, and that was in 2018. The subsequent 4 matches that we've played against them have all been at Adelaide Oval, and we've won one of those, and the Giants have won 3. But we actually have not played up at whatever it's called now, Giant Stadium. It used to be Spotless Stadium. We haven't played up there for bloody ages, 2015. And the
I
last
didn't
time
realise it's that long.
Yeah, unbelievable. And the last time we went up there was 2014. So, it's a long time. It's a long time. So there could be a little bit of ground awareness lacking, particularly as we saw earlier, the configuration of the ground up there compared to Adelaide Oval. So that's a negative in my opinion. The positive is, of course, that we'll get to see how Harry Himmelberg might look, because he's definitely down at the Crows next year.
Well, I hope he is at the Crows next year, because he's the type of player we need.
Anyway, the other thing that I was going to, the other thing I was going to say when I was looking at how this side shapes up is probably a little bit of a concern is that it seems to be a fairly solid 23, Macca. There's not a lot pushing up. When I was thinking about, all right, who misses out, the only one that really I thought might have been a little bit stiff was Riley Thilthorpe.
Yeah, look, I went through the whole list, and unfortunately, I have to agree with you. I mean, when you look at some of the players that have missed out, and we're looking at Jones, and we're looking at McHenry, Tyler Brown, and McPherson's injured, of course.
Yeah.
And that, they're guys that might have popped in if we had injuries, but it's a little bit desperado in the sense that there's not, and that's why Crouch, I think, would have been a possibility to play games this year, and because there isn't that much challenging. It's going to be a big year for a few players though, because players like Zach Taylor, Cook, and Nankervis, for example, those 3 players, this has got to be their year where they progress to the point where sometime during the, maybe in the second half of the year, they're knocking on the door and saying, "Hey, pick me because I'm playing damn well good footy here in the SAFL." So they are the 3 players in particular I'm thinking that they've got to grow in stature to try and force their way into the team. Because as you say at the moment, they're not ready to be in the team.
No, those 3 definitely not. Zach Taylor, it probably looks the most promising of those 3. You've got Chase Jones that can come into a defensive role or in a pinch maybe on a wing. You've got Lockie Gallant, who's looked okay up forward, but you just wonder about Lockie Gallant. Might be looking at that forward line and thinking, shit, I might be better off somewhere else. So I worry a bit about...
I'll be thinking that.
Yeah, we got Josh Worrell to come back from injury, who is a good foil in defence. There's not a lot else. You've got the emergency break glass of Lockie Murphy and Ned McHenry, and how good is it not to be, relying on those two fellas at the start of the year? You wouldn't have thought. And you've got Thilthorpe, who comes in at some point, whether that be for Elliot Himmelberg or Riley O'Brien, depending on what happens. But we do still have a little bit of a gap, don't we? Just to the next lot. Tyler Brown was probably the only other one that I thought might have been a handy one for a sub Macca, because he's quite versatile.
Yep.
But just on form, I had Pedler and Hamill in front of him.
Yeah, look, there is another player in there who I expect to play games later in the year, and that's Keane. As you know, once he's got a few games under his belt, I can see him forcing his way into the side. He's played AFL, and he's a very tough character. He's big, he's strong, he's quite quick, and he's a good kick. So, he's somebody I can see forcing his way into the team in the long run.
Yeah. Blade is asking in the chat about Miller. Miller hasn't played didn't play the last trial game, Blade, because of personal reasons. I'm not sure how much time he spent on the track, so we're assuming that he's not going to be coming up for round one. Yeah, so look, I guess we've got maybe half a dozen players, Macca, that with injuries would be okay to come back in. But there is a little bit of a depth gap there. If we suddenly got two or three soft tissues in the midfield rotations, we'd start to look a little bit thin, wouldn't we?
Well, exactly right. I think what's very disappointing is what's happened with Thilthorpe, in the sense that here's a guy that kicked 5 goals in his very first game, and he had all the confidence in the world, and somewhere along the line he's lost a little bit of confidence. And I would hope that, as the season develops, we can get to the point where he can actually be our ruckman and changing with Himmelberg at full forward.
Why is it sad?
Something like that. Well,
why is it sad? How long's he been in our system?
Thilthorpe?
Yeah.
He's been... He's had 2 full seasons.
So after 2 seasons, we were wondering what the hell we were going to do with Darcy Fogarty. There's Logan McDonald isn't playing round 1 for the Swans, most likely. I think there's a long-term plan for blokes like Riley Thilthorpe, and yes, he's a bit of a confidence player, but he is not going to burst onto the scene like a midfielder, Macca. We need to learn and understand that these big fellas, they just take a little bit longer. And as I said to you last week, my opinion is that they want him to carry a bit of a load in the SANFL, and ultimately I think he's their number 1 ruck option. And he's not built to be able to do that right now. We've got Riley O'Brien who can do that, to some degree. And it shows me with the inclusion of Himmelberg and them backing him in during the pre-season that they want Himmelberg to be that second ruck option playing forward. And I think, as I said to you last week, I think it's going to be Thilthorpe replacing Riley O'Brien more than Thilthorpe replacing Elliot Himmelberg, unless Himmelberg really stinks it up.
Yeah, well, no, I think you are right, and I probably am being impatient about it. It was just that you just know the guy's he's loaded with talent. He is loaded with talent, and it's just a question of him believing enough that he's got that much talent to actually perform to it.
How long did it take Darcy Moore to break out at Collingwood?
Look, no, I understand what you're saying. I just thought you are right, and there is a natural progression in time. It's just that I just thought he was exceptional, that I thought he was going to be better than the average player in terms of the time he was going to take.
But what did you base that on? There was nothing that really suggested that was going to be that he was going to be a freak.
Oh, I thought his first game showed that.
Oh, but he was just sharking the ball. Like, you've got to think. I mean, yes, he kicked 5 goals, but when you think about his career, what are his primary KPIs? Marking the ball overhead, getting up and down the ground, winning the ball in ruck. Like, he was basically in the right place at the right time for most of those goals, Macca.
Well, that shows he's got very good judgment then, Fiend, doesn't it?
Not really.
You don't get there by luck, mate.
Of course you do. You're sitting there.
That one all day, but you are right in the long run. I would expect that to improve this year and then really explode next year. So let's hope so.
Yeah, I think so. But I don't mind the tack that the club are taking, and hopefully they're communicating well with him, and they've got a program for him, and his expectations are clear, and their expectations are clear, and everyone's on the same page. I would hate to think that he's getting hung out to dry and just being told, play your best and see what happens. I hope there is a clear strategy that has been communicated with him. And I'm pretty sure there will have been, because when the assistant panel that we've got now seems to be far more communicative than maybe what they have in the past.
Just a little bit off topic, I noticed in the chat that there are a couple of names that we forgot when we were talking before. Lockie Scholl, what a shame. I mean, the guy's got talent to burn, but he hasn't got the tenacity that we required at AFL level, to put it politely. And then you've got Newchurch, who again is another guy with talent, with got pace, and just doesn't put in enough. It just doesn't put enough, and it's got no second efforts whatsoever.
Well, I mean, Scholl, when you look at Scholl, have a look at the side that's likely to line up against the Giants. We've put Hinge on one wing and Sloan on the other. You could quite easily have Dawson up there on the other. They're completely different players to Lockie Scholl. And it's quite evident to me that that's indicative of what Matthew Nicks values the most. There are outside runners in our team, but they are not the type of outside runners that will shirk a contest. If you look through our medium, tall, and smalls in defence, Smith, Dawson, Duday, Parnell, they'll all go through a player if they need to. Sloan will, Berry will, Keys will, Laird will, Hinge will. So behind the forward line, behind the ball, we have got a team that will not shirk it. And I just don't think that Nicks has got time for a bloke to be a completely outside player.
No, he hasn't. And unfortunately for Scholl, it's not in his makeup. I mean, you've seen him physically pike it at least a couple of times. I mean, totally pike it. And, of course, with Nicks, that would carry a great big cross against his name. And it's sad, really, because he has got talent. If he could toughen up, which he won't, if he could toughen up, he'd be a very handy player to have. But
now, Mac, while we're...
Newchurch, another player with talent.
Yeah, but I don't think you can put Newchurch and Scholl in the same conversation. Newchurch is coming from a long way back. And speculative at best. Lockie Scholl wasn't speculative, and in his first year he obviously did very well. Yeah. I think it's a change in philosophy down at the Crows, brought about by Nicks and probably a consensus amongst the rest of the coaching group. But Tariq is another thing entirely. And with the forward line that we've got now, and the few coming in that could come into that forward line, I wish Tariq all the best, but I don't feel ultimately, and he was never viewed as a strong chance to make it because otherwise he would have been drafted.
Yeah, and look, I don't think he'll ever play an AFL game. That's my opinion, Fiend.
Well, I don't disagree. I think he'll become a very good, pardon me, SANFL player. I just don't, and he shows like all players of his kind, the small forward, he's got all the tricks and all the rest of it. But I think you're right. I don't think he has the work ethic.
That's it. That's the word. That's the words. Work ethic.
Yeah. So he'll always be quite a flashy player. And I don't think he's got the same ability as someone like, say, Isaac Rankin to elevate himself above being just a flashy, player that sort of will snag you 3 one week and then go missing for the next month,
And the other one, Borlase, and these are rookie guys, but Borlase, I can't see him playing a game unless we had tools go down by the one after the other, because I do like the way his efforts are very good, and he's not too bad in a one-on-one contest, but he's pretty slow once the ball hits the ground. That's his deficiency, and so he's going to be struggling to ever get a game as well.
Well, I agree with you on that. I think they've kept Borlase on the list because he has got football IQ and he has got football ability, and we're not spoilt for large defenders. But I think he suffers from being a bit of a tweener. It'd be better if he was 4 or 5 more centimeters. You could probably live with his lack of pace, but at his height, he needs to be able to cover the ground a little bit better. And because he's not going to be that key defender, I don't think, at AFL level.
Yeah, I think at the end of this year, there's going to be quite a clean out of players, I think, mate. There's going to be quite a few that are going to depart. Well,
I mean, it's a natural turnover. I've been looking at the way the squads transition, over 7 to 8 years, and you'd be quite surprised at how much, say, a Hawthorn's squad evolved during Clarkson's tenure there. How much Mick Malthouse's squad evolved during his tenure at Collingwood. It actually, the Crows squad has been quite stable for quite a long time until, the fallout of 2018, 2019. But, we would be further along if we did better with our earlier picks, in the Gallucci, Chase Jones sort of drafts. The simple fact is we're not. But we're now seeing that as a consequence, those players are now just through natural ability now on the outer. Like Ned McHenry, for example, was a staple in our side for 2 years, and I can't see him getting a game this year unless we have a run of injuries.
Yeah, again, he's a peripheral player now. He was actually one of the hearts of the side in terms of he was the coach's pet there for a little while because we had nobody better, and he tried very, very hard, although he was just a little bit of a pest, really.
Well, it's not a knock on McHenry. It's not a knock on him at all. It's just that we've got more talent now. And it's talent that we maybe could have got a little bit earlier had we made better choices at the draft. But that's basically how it is.
And you don't knock him on that effort, but he's not a great lot of skill.
No, Chase Jones is another. He probably will survive a little bit longer than Ned, I think. I could see Ned bobbing up and playing for another side. I think Ned is AFL quality in the right setup. In our setup now, I think that players have gone past him, and the way we play is no longer conducive to what he can bring.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. So we've got. So when we look at our side, as we said, we're picking 23 players for the first game, and there's probably only 1 or 2 that you would say, if they were available, but that would, like a Worrell and maybe a Crouch, there aren't too many others you can say that I Phil thought possibly you could say you'd think about putting into the side. So and the others are only like if you've got injuries, then you're going to have to fall back to them. Like a Murphy, we didn't mention Murphy, for example. He was a staple in the side for a while.
Yeah, so, I mean, without harping on about it anymore, I think that's probably our little weakness this year. If we start getting injuries or if form drops off, I don't know whether we've got a lot of options outside probably 25 players. So that might hamper us in terms of making the 8 this year, I think. Because it only takes one or two and in the wrong positions, and all of a sudden we're under the pump. So we'll see how we go on that one. That said, Macca, it's round 1 and we can't speculate too much. The stats seem to be against us. What do you think?
Well, I think you're just talking about this particular game.
Well, yeah, we're previewing round 1, so of course we are.
Okay. So I'm picking the Crows to win by 15 points.
Yeah. Yeah, I am too. I'm probably a little bit optimistic, but I think our best work will probably get it done. As I said before, for the reasons that I think we actually match up quite well with them in the midfield, and we've got far more firepower than they do. If their midfield gets on top, we're going to struggle, I think. But I don't. Our midfield doesn't seem to be that kind of group. So it'll. I think the issue, Macca, will be that when the momentum swings their way, as we know momentum swings during a game of football, we need to be able to keep that off the scoreboard as much as possible. If we let them get a run of goals, then I think it's going to be difficult. But if we can hold them when they've got the momentum, I think we've got more scoring power when we've got momentum.
Yeah, the thing is that actually if we look at our history against GWS, there's been a couple of games where we look like we're going to beat them and then they run over us at the end of the game. But I don't think we are that type of side this year that I think that, it will be in the game, and I think they'll be in the game as well, obviously. I think it'll be just a tussle. It'll be a tussle. But I think that I like the way we played it over in Perth. I thought it was good. And I like particularly against Rio. I'm not thinking this is going to be a cakewalk or anything like that, but I just think that if we play up to that standard, we can win this game.
Now, it'll be interesting to hear what our studio audience have got to say, Macca, and we've got a couple of people with their hands up. So Gatesy has been waiting there for quite some time. Gatesy, come in and tell us what you reckon.
Hey, boys.
What do you think, mate? Hello?
Hello.
Gotcha.
Hello?
Can you hear us?
I was just wondering what you guys thought about the key factors that contributed to the Crows' success back in the 1997 and 98 wins.
Well,
That's a long time ago, mate. That's a long time ago.
It's a big question. Sorry, boys.
Well, the key factor was we kicked more goals than they did. Gatesy?
I think the key factor going back into 97, 98 is we had a very imaginative coach for a start, who actually had the team playing with him until he lost them eventually.
What about this? What about this game, Gatesy?
I think Crows by 15 as well.
Crows by 15 as well. What do you think the key factor?
If we can defend a bit, we'll be fine.
What part do you think we'll get on top, mate?
Fogarty, Bag and 5.
Yeah, I reckon you might be spot on there.
Rankin?
Yeah, I reckon you might. Reckon you might be spot on with Fog. I reckon he's raring to go. He's like a thoroughbred.
Yeah,
raring to go. So. Good on you, mate. Thanks for your contribution.
He doesn't miss set shots though.
No, he doesn't. Well, he did last week. He missed one last week, but we'll forgive him that.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Well, you've picked the same as me, and I hope you're a good judge.
Yeah, thanks, Macca.
Good on you, mate. And the other bloke we got is Baxter. 2 new people to the Discord server, by the way, Macca, and we've tipped over 300 on the Discord server, which is fantastic. And for people that are listening to us on YouTube or on Spreaker on demand, and you're not part of our Discord server yet, get around it. Links will be in our socials and in our various channels and whatnot. It's a good place to be during footy season. There's lots of banter, there's lots of chat and discussion, a few competitions and all the rest of it. So if you're not already part of our Discord server, get around it. It's a good time. Baxter, what do you reckon?
Hey boys, I was just going to say that you said we played at GWS's stadium in 2015 last. I was just going to re-correct you on that one, that we actually played there in 2021 against the Tigers due to the COVID
of course
times.
we did.
So we have played there recently.
Very good.
We did play well in the start, but then
we didn't.
Obviously lost that game. Yeah,
we didn't. No,
I was also wondering who you guys think would be the breakout player in that game
this week.
Against the GWS.
Yeah,
when you say breakout, you mean somebody is somebody new, or just who you think will be the best player?
I mean, whatever your thoughts are.
Okay, well, just very quickly, I just think that our strengths lie in very much the fact that we've got a strong forward line and we have to feed it. I think Lairdy's will do a very good job as he's in crackling form at the moment. He I think 33 possessions or something last week, or 2 fortnight ago. And I just think that if we get good support in the midfield, if we give the supply, I would think that blokes like Fogarty, and I also think Rankin and Rochelle should do very well in this particular game, because I think they do have a little stopper, but I don't think he'd be able to run with them. I think they'd be able to outrun him. But I think our strength will be the fact that we've got some good forwards. Tex Walker's in good form. So I think between Fogg, Walker, and the small guys out around the ground, with the defence holding firm, we can win this game. That's how I think of it. That's my opinion, anyhow.
Mac, I reckon there's a couple of blokes that are going to jump out, and I think Jake Soligo is going to be the one. I think Soligo is raring to go, and
played well.
Got really involved against West Coast last week. Did lots of nice things as we highlighted. So I'm looking for a big one from him first up, and the other bloke, they're going to be so focused on Walker and Fogarty. I reckon the bloke to bob up and kick a bag is McAdam. I reckon he's the one that's going to kick a bag. Fogarty and Walker will kick a couple each, and we'll get a few off our smalls. But I reckon Shane's the one that's going to get off the chain.
It wouldn't be a total surprise there, Fee, because I thought that he played very, very well against West Coast.
Yeah, look, he looks in great nick. He's very fit. He's running up and down the ground. He's doing all the defensive work. I just have a feeling that he's the one.
Who did you think, Baxter?
Oh, I'd love to see Rankin dominate in the forward line, kick a bag. And I'd love to see Berry crack in there. I think he's a great player.
Actually, we forgot to mention him because he does go in hard, and he actually is a good type, the type that can stop a really classy player like Kelly. He could actually bring his game down, which would be a very good thing. Canelio ends his ball the hard way, but so Berry could be a very, very important factor in that midfield, stopping the classy ones from getting the ball out. So yeah, good point.
Who are the dangers?
I also think. Sorry, no, mate.
No, going back.
I was just going to say they've also got that Tom Green in the midfield, and he's an absolute ball magnet. So it's going to be hard stopping him.
That's a good segue, because I was just going to ask you who you reckon the dangers is, and for mine it's Tom Green. He's the one, along obviously with his sort of namesake with an extra E, Toby, and also Lloyd seems to bob up. I reckon they're the three that if they get off the chain, they could hurt us. Whitfield always plays well against us too.
So Jesse White or whatever doesn't play his one good game for the year against us, like he did last year.
Who's that? Oh, Hogan.
Oh yeah, it's Hogan. Yeah.
I think Jesse White's playing Div 3 in WA somewhere now.
Yeah, not bad.
All right, mate. Thanks very much for your,
Alright,
your thoughts, and thanks for joining us on the. I noticed that you joined us on the server as well recently, so good on you, mate. Hope you enjoy it.
Good on you.
Cheers, mate. Love
Good
you,
on
mate.
you, Vaxon. Well done, mate.
Now, before I bring Mick up,
Look-
who will just straighten us right up, Macca,
Yeah.
just
It's good, Nick.
just a reminder that if you're watching us on YouTube and you're not yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button for us. That would be lovely. And also press the notifications bell so that you get all the content throughout the course of the season. As I mentioned before, join our Discord server. There's lots of stuff going on. At the moment, there's a merch giveaway for March. If you haven't already and you want to be in amongst that, it doesn't cost you anything. Go to the competitions channel on our Discord server and just click the participate button and away you go. What else is there? Macca? I think that might be it. So let's bring Mick on. I'll also give us a review on iTunes if that's where you're listening to. Mick, how you going?
Yeah, good thanks. How you going tonight?
Oh, you're a bit muffled there, mate. Long shift?
Can you hear me any better?
Yeah,
Sounds
it's not
like
too
in the
bad.
blogger, mate.
Just one player you're going through who would be good for us this week. I think you missed him. I'm really looking forward to his season. It's going to be Hinge.
Yes, agreed.
I
Very
think
much so.
He's one that's going to surprise a lot of people, I think, because I really enjoyed how he was playing in the pre-season. And I think his run and carry that he's got is really going to surprise a lot of people.
I think the door's really
Got a
open
good
for
leg
Hinge
on
this year, Mick.
Well, is that you two spoke over each other?
Yeah, I think the door's open for Hinge this year, mate.
Yeah, I think it is too. It was. I think the spot was between him and Jones.
Didn't get the
And I think
pun.
he took it off of Jones. Yes, I did get the pun, but I just got it at the top of my head. The door was slightly ajar.
Who do you think of the key contest, mate?
Oh, I'm actually a bit on the same size as Fiend about McAdam in the forward line. I think he is going to be a major part, but I think people were a bit down on Himmelberg's game last week, and yes, he did kick inaccurately, but he is marking pretty well, and that's been the knock on to him until now, that he was dropping a lot, or bouncing out of his hands. Well, now he's actually marking them. He had a bad week at kicking, but if he can
Just seemed to be a bit late
put
on
them
everything,
two
Mick.
together.
Just seemed to be a bit late to
He
the
was,
contest.
Yeah, he did it after half time. Before half time, I think those two kicks he missed sort of put him off or something. But before half time, he was going all right. The second half, he was behind for sure.
Oh, yeah,
But if he can
right,
get
Nick.
it right, he's going to be good for us this year. And when it comes to everyone I've been listening to, which I really shouldn't because it's depressing. I've been listening to all the Victorian media, and if you actually get someone to talk about the Crows, which is very hard, they'll talk about Tex, Sloan, and
Laird,
and
the usual.
Forget we've got the rest of the team.
Yeah.
But I think that our young midfield is quick and they're hard.
Yes,
and it's really going to surprise a lot of sides.
I agree.
And as for Barry Macca, he's not going to be just there to lock down on someone. I think you'll find this year he's not just going to be tackling; he's going to be getting a lot of the ball himself.
Oh no, I
And
agree with him. I do
He's a
agree.
lot quicker. He's a lot quicker than people give him credit for, and he's a hell of a lot better kicker than I thought he was.
Yeah, but I think he's as good as two players in some games because he gets quite a lot of possessions himself. But he's also very, very instrumental in stopping the opposition from getting a lot of possessions clear as well. So like he's one of the rare players that gives you total value both ways. Yeah, no, I agree with that. And like I can see us. I believe that we're going to win this weekend. Not so much
that we're better than them in any particular place on the ground. It's the physical pressure that they're going to put on it. They can bring the same pressure that they brought most of the games last year, except for that pathetic effort against GWS and Adelaide. If they can bring the physical pressure, GWS do not like that.
No, I agree 100% with you on that one, Mick. I've been banging on about that for a couple of weeks now. I think that's where we're going to edge a couple of teams. It's certainly, there's a couple of sides that have built their brand around that sort of stuff. Richmond, Western Bulldogs come to mind. There's no substitute for just being hard at it for 120 minutes. And it's amazing how many sides that are perhaps more talented or more experienced will wilt because they just can't keep concentrating and can't keep hacking it for the full game.
I think we're starting to see I know it was only the pre-season, but I think we started to see in that pre-season hit-outs. They're starting to see the effect of the second year on the just.
Mick, I reckon your connection's just about giving up there, mate. But I agree with you. I think we did see it. We did see it in the trials. Just that next level, just taking another step by the looks of it.
You're hearing a bit crackly, so I'll let you go tonight, and I'll catch you next week.
Good on you, Mick.
Good on you, Mick.
Take it easy, mate. And we've got Arab. Come on board, mate. And I also see, just as Arab's coming online, Macca, I also see there's someone there by the name of Vardy Magic. And Vardy's avatar has Vardy with his arm raised, but I don't see Vardy Magic's arm raised, which is disappointing. So pile on the peer pressure, please, while we listen to Arab Child. How you going, mate?
Good. How are you guys going?
Good, mate.
Howdy, mate. How's things?
Yeah, not too bad. There's one player that I'm really excited to see because his role changed last year, and I feel like he's going to be pivotal. Is shut down.
You dropped out as soon as you mentioned the name. Who was it,
You
mate?
just got a ping when you said the name.
Do you hear me now? Keys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's the player?
Keys.
Keys.
Keys. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. He's changed his role, and I feel like he's going to be pivotal for our midfield and our areas where he's going to be shutting down a lot of players with his speed and his tenacity. I want to see what you guys think of that.
Well, the only thing against what you're saying is the fact that, and I'm not saying you're wrong, by the way, for whatever reason, he only had 2 centre bounce attendances against West Coast.
Yeah, but wasn't he tagging someone? I thought he was tagging someone.
No, he was playing up forward, Arab. Kick 4 goals, mate.
Because I thought last year his role changed to being that tagging player, and I was like, "Oh, this is really good for him." Especially, I think it was like the second to last game. He was like amazing at it.
You may have George Slade, but when we're
so you could be right this time.
You might have missed our selection earlier, Arab, but we were talking about Benny maybe taking on a bit of a shutdown role on one of their mids as well. So I've actually got him starting in the midfield. So you could well be right, mate.
Yeah, that's the one thing. That's all I want to say. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Good on you, mate.
Well done,
Have
mate.
a good one.
And Vardy Magic, come on, mate. Come on.
No, he's not doing it. That's fine.
Set of caddy whackers, mate. Get up here.
No, it's no deal from Vardy, so that's fine. Look, we've hit our 90 minutes, Macca. It's been a good night, lots to talk about, and just absolutely pumped for the weekend. So hopefully this time next week we can talk about a 1-zip record to start off the season.
Well, next week it's going to be very interesting, and you should all be back here next week, whether we win or lose, because we're going to have lots to talk about, because we're going to have our actual games under our belt, and we're going to be talking about players who we absolutely loved on the day, and the players that we actually cursed all day, etc. So it'll be very interesting, because there'll be heaps and heaps to talk about. We did this wrong, the coaches did that wrong, they played so out of position, so on, because we're all experts half of the game.
That's why we're here. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks everyone on Discord. Thanks to those who have joined us on YouTube. Our viewing numbers have really been so healthy this year. So we thank everyone for their support. And hopefully that continues during the course of the season. Don't forget to spread the word with your friends and share your links on socials and all that sort of gear. In the interim, Macca, take care. Don't, over-excite yourself while we're waiting for Sunday afternoon. Just take it easy.
I'll take it. I'll cruise along, mate. Cruise along.
Have your warm milk and get to bed early and get yourself sorted. Don't forget. Don't forget to get your tips in if you're in the tipping comp. Get your fantasy league team sorted. We've still got tons of room in the second league. So if you want to be part of our fantasy league, the links are in our fantasy or our competitions channel in Discord. So go check those out. Don't forget to put your tips in, as I said. Mac, that's us done, I reckon.
Fine.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next Sunday for the wrap. In the meantime, have a good week and be safe.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, all.